Let's face it.
If you live in any of these countries, and by these countries I really mean this country,
it's clear that you don't know much about China. And at the time of this recording, America in particular is more inclined to hate China than to sing its praises, especially the praises of its ruling party. Anti-communists will be more likely to rant and rave over the deaths under Mao than to actually study the ideology, let alone examine the country's historical material conditions. However, in 2015, a small grassroots webcomic began to be woven by the lines of pencil and pen, and not so long after, it was released onto the vastness that is YouTube. Your Hare affair is, in the simplest of terms, Italia, but with animals and no shipping. At least, depending on who you ask. But its purpose was to teach the youth of China about the achievements of the CPC. And with about half the webcomics translated into English, I set out to watch the series after a comrade of mine posted it on the I.C.A. server. Did it live out its purpose? For that conclusion, let's compare and contrast, shall we? It's really engaging to watch and wonder what the countries and the characters are doing, to see them interact and have it all revealed with a bite-sized history lesson on the subject whilst the credits rolled. The first season dealt with events from the 40s to the 60s, with the introduction, the People's Volunteer Army arc or the Korean War arc, and the Atomic arc. The second season,
what I could see of it,
spanned from about the 60s onward, touching on China's aid in Africa, the Sino-Soviet split, the reopening to the West, and the honeymoon period between the US and China. As an effective way of telling history, Your Hare Affair stands as a shining example, condensing the events down and making them, the countries that is, relatable. But, like with all media, there are faults, and in my opinion, the faults of the show are quite glaring. Whilst I praise the PVA arc and the handling of episode 3, I'm suspicious of the Africa arc and the handling of China's African allies. The show depicts Africans as stupid, dumb, even downright conniving, and puts them, more often than not, into the punchline of a few of the jokes told. The arc being an obvious product of ongoing imperialism and the sinocentrism China falls a slave to. In the first episode, the Hare, after dealing arms with the Africans, is caught in the middle of gunfire, feeling cheated and deposed of. The Hare then turns upon both groups, cursing their simplicity and shouting, quote, "You can't hit any target without Marxism-Leninism," implying the Africans as misguided and naive. China, by the end of the episode, begins construction of a railroad in Africa paid for not with money, but with African resources. The narrative of sinocentrism continues as the final episode of the arc argues that without Chinese equipment and support, Julius Nyerere's Tanzania would not have beaten the combined forces of Idi Amin and Gaddafi's Libya. It's a narrative akin to Dances with Wolves and the white savior complex that came with it. The honeymoon arc, however, gives a different tone. This is where peak dangism creeps in as China, whilst discussing weapons and arms with the United States, begins to crave money in order to be strong, in order to achieve what America has already built up before them. On screen, this arc presents China as wanting to beat the US at its own game, but the flaws that reveal not only the arcs but the show's dangus nature are threefold. First and foremost is China's lack of depiction of events such as the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, and the restoration of the right opposition, events well known to Maoists and communists alike. Second is the belief that material betterment, grand infrastructure, the abundance of material wealth and consumerism, or to have the highest GDP growth out of all countries leads to social betterment. This hypothesis can be proven false, as the dangus reforms that brought China forward economically have also brought China backwards into the authoritarian capitalist hellscape it is now, with all the poverty, sweatshops, and suicide nets that money can buy. Finally, the linchpin of the show's dangish dream is the emotion of greed. In short, greed, most notably over money, is often ridiculed in all thoughts of Asiatic socialism. Maoism in particular places the idea under great scrutiny. But how can a politically aligned cartoon become popular? Animated propaganda has been around for nearly a century, so what makes this one any different? If you were on the internet in 2017, you may remember Earth-chan and the anime personification that came with her. For leftists, you had Alunya, Radina, and the political ideology cats. Animation has been an effective tool used to simplify the message of a political movement with easy-to-understand narratives. And what sets Hare apart from the rest is its medium and its audience: millennials, Gen Z, and the internet. Webcomics like Hitalia Axis Powers and Hare use the internet effectively to tell the narratives and the histories of countries. Hare's aesthetics and keep it simple storytelling makes this show accessible for anyone who enjoys animation or anyone who wants to study modern Chinese history. In a way, the design of the characters is a perfect example of complexity within simplicity, as the show embraces simple sprites and actions in order to present information. But Hitalia and Hare are both historically oriented shows, so what is it that sets them apart? For that, let's discuss the use of moe. Whilst Hitalia, being primarily a comedy, used moe sparingly for comedic effect and merchandise, Hare takes it and weaponizes it. The Hare, in particular, being a cute, energetic, naive little rabbit devoted to, quote, changing the history of China. The show aims directly for the feels, as no matter the odds, no matter the struggles that the nation will endure, it will keep going. This chord for many a comrade was best struck during the PVA arc, a moment of great solidarity between China and the DPRK. To see the rabbits endure the frigid temperatures of the Chosin Reservoir, the constant artillery bombardment and the Battle of Triangle Hill, the pain and suffering of losing friends and loved ones, yet are still able to rise to the occasion, come out victorious, to reconnect with those once lost, and to bring glory to the CPC, it is truly inspiring to see, and is guaranteed to sweep up a new generation of members for an organization. This is another example of how generalization makes its mark. With its design and conventional Chinese dialogue, the viewer can recognize the emotions and the communal sentiment of particular characters. These portrayals of emotions can sometimes symbolize what the Chinese government or its population was feeling at a particular moment in time: sadness, pride, or anger caused by certain events. Overall, if you want to learn Chinese history from a Chinese perspective, Hare is a good place to start, and I highly recommend this series to comrades and non-rats alike.